Right now, floating 12,500 miles above your head, there is a piece of infrastructure so deeply embedded into modern life that most engineers who depend on it have never stopped to ask a single question about it. Not one question. And that silence, that total absence of curiosity, may be the most dangerous thing about it. You carry it in your pocket. You trust it completely, and you have absolutely no control over it whatsoever. That infrastructure is called GPS. And what I'm about to show you is not a conspiracy theory. It's not speculation. It's the documented, declassified, publicly verifiable architecture of the most consequential piece of technology ever deployed, and the structural vulnerability buried inside it that no one in power wants you to spend too much time thinking about. Here is what most people believe about GPS. It's a free app, a convenience, something that exists so you don't get lost driving to the airport. That belief is not wrong, it's just radically incomplete. GPS was designed by the United States Department of Defense in 1973, not for navigation apps, not for ride shares. It was built to solve a specific military problem. How do you guide a weapons system to a precise location anywhere on Earth, in any weather, with no dependence on ground-based infrastructure that an enemy could destroy? That problem produced GPS, a constellation of satellites broadcasting timing signals so precise that receivers on the ground could calculate their own position to within meters. The technology worked, and it worked so well that by the 1980s, the military was quietly asking a harder question. If this system is this accurate, and we make it available to the public, what stops an adversary from using American satellites to aim their own weapons with American precision? Their answer was called Selective Availability. For the first 17 years of civilian GPS, the signal broadcast to the public was deliberately degraded, hundreds of feet off, sometimes more. The real precision was reserved for military receivers with a classified correction code. The public got a version of the truth, close enough to be useful, inaccurate enough to be safe. Then, on May 1, 2000, President Clinton signed an order turning selective availability off permanently. Overnight, civilian GPS became 50 times more accurate. The world celebrated, airlines celebrated, shipping companies celebrated, farmers celebrated. But almost nobody stopped to ask the obvious structural question. If one president turned the accuracy on with a single decision, what happens when another turns it off? That question has a formal name inside the national security community. It's called GPS dependency risk. And understanding it requires understanding something most people don't know, that GPS is not primarily a navigation system. It is a timing system. The navigation capability is almost a side effect. The core function of GPS, the thing that civilization has quietly built itself around, is the broadcast of an extraordinarily precise time signal, accurate to within nanoseconds, 1/1000th of a second. That precision is the hidden engine underneath the modern world. The United States power grid uses GPS timing to synchronize electricity flow across interconnected networks spanning thousands of miles of wire. Grid operators need time accuracy in the microsecond range to keep alternating currents synchronized across the entire eastern or western interconnect. Without that synchronization, frequency deviations build. Protective systems begin isolating sections. A partial cascade becomes possible. Experts in grid reliability have studied this. Their findings are not reassuring. A 2019 report from the Department of Energy noted that GPS timing had become deeply embedded in grid management, and that alternative timing sources had not kept pace with operational dependency. They were not describing imminent collapse, they were describing a structural gap, a gap that grows larger every year. Your cellular network has the same dependency. When you make a call, your phone's signal bounces between towers that must coordinate their timing precisely to avoid interference. That coordination runs on GPS. The industry knows this. Most major carriers have backup timing systems, but those backups are designed to bridge gaps of hours, not days. A prolonged disruption would degrade network quality progressively, not at all at once. Your call would get worse before it went silent. And then there is the financial system. This is where the GPS dependence becomes genuinely difficult to explain because it sounds technical until you understand what it actually means. Every major financial market on Earth uses GPS timestamps to sequence high-frequency trades, transactions executing in microseconds. The timestamp is not just a label, it is the proof of sequence. It determines who bought first, who sold first, which contract is valid, and which is voided. In 2016, a single GPS satellite, 1 out of 31, broadcast an incorrect time signal for approximately 13 hours. This was not an attack. It was a software error during a routine maintenance update. The signal was off by a fraction of a millisecond. That fraction affected telecommunication synchronization across parts of Europe. Networks logged the disruption. Broadcasters reported timing failures. The impact was real, measurable, and traced directly to one satellite behaving incorrectly for less than a day. 13 hours, one satellite, partial disruption. That is the scale of what a minor malfunction looks like. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has estimated that a complete GPS outage would cost the United States economy roughly $1 billion per day, for the U.S. alone. Other analyses suggest the global figure runs considerably higher during an extended outage, though economists note the uncertainty in those projections because nothing at this scale has ever actually happened. That uncertainty is itself informative. We have never tested what happens because we have never been willing to find out. 90% of global trade moves by sea. Commercial vessels use GPS as their primary navigation system. Modern ship routing, port approach, and collision avoidance all depend on it. Maritime pilots have noted that skills in traditional celestial and radio navigation have atrophied significantly over 2 decades of GPS reliance. This is not a failure of training, it is a rational response to a reliable system. The problem with rational responses to reliable systems is that they leave you exposed when the reliable system becomes less reliable. Commercial aviation has the same profile. The FAA has increasingly moved approach procedures toward GPS-based guidance, particularly for airports that lack expensive ground-based instrument landing systems. This has been enormously beneficial. It has extended precision approach capability to thousands of smaller airports that previously couldn't support it. But it also means that in a GPS disruption, the airports that would lose capability first are the smaller, more rural airports, the ones serving communities with fewer transport alternatives. The FAA maintains contingency procedures. Pilots train for GPS failures. The system is more resilient than its critics sometimes acknowledge. But resilience and invulnerability are not the same thing. Now let me tell you about the control architecture, because this is where the conversation shifts from infrastructure risk to something more structurally interesting. GPS is operated through a network of ground stations managed by the United States Space Force. The Master Control Station is located at Schriever Space Base in Colorado. From there, operators upload commands to individual satellites, adjusting timing parameters, orbital data, and signal characteristics. This architecture means the United States government has a capability that no other institution on Earth possesses: the ability to selectively modify the signal quality of GPS for specific geographic regions. Not turn it off globally. That would be catastrophic and self-defeating. American systems depend on GPS too, but degrade it selectively. Make it less accurate in specific areas, for specific receivers, for specific periods of time.